Welcome to the Wellness Table podcast. Today's podcast, we're going to be talking about sunshine. Is it harmful? It sure seems like it must be, since we're always trying to protect our skin and block those sun rays from giving us a sunburn. And we're looking at sunscreens, clothing that we can use, hats, sunglasses, so many things for us to heed that warning from the dermatologist so that we can protect our skin and prevent ourselves from skin cancer. But is there such a thing as sunshine deficiency? Is it harming our overall health and well-being that we have taken these warnings from dermatologists so serious that we have overshadowed the benefits of sunshine? That's what we want to talk about in today's podcast. What are the health benefits from sunshine? How much sunshine do we need to be healthful? And how much is harmful? There's a fine line between it, and we're going to explore that in today's podcast. First, I want to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Cheryl Bothwell. I'm a doctor of clinical nutrition. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm a cookbook author and a recipe creator, and I have 20 plus years of experience focused on food and lifestyle medicine, looking at what's the right dose for the foods that are optimal, the lifestyle behaviors that are optimal to combat disease and help you live more healthy years to your life. My life work has been about creating a proprietary wellness score that I created during my doctoral work, and it identifies 10 foods and 10 lifestyle behaviors, such as sunshine, that at the right dose can improve our health, increase our vibrant life, help us live more healthy years, combat disease, and help us live at a healthy weight, and help us focus on body recomposition, meaning more muscle, less fat, living at our healthy weight. So I'm excited to be sharing with you today about sunshine and how it can be medicine for our body. It's a controversial topic for sure, and I'm excited at the Wellness Table to cover all of these lifestyle behaviors that can really have an impact on giving us more vibrant life and adding more healthy years to our life. I believe that lifestyle medicine benefits everyone, regardless of their diagnosis, regardless of their age, the patient and provider, all taking the same medicine. So when we're talking about medicine, again, if you're taking a blood pressure medicine, you're going to be dosing it every single day. When we're looking at lifestyle medicine, when we're looking at foods that heal, we're talking about these foods that need to be eaten every day. These lifestyle behaviors need to be taken in and practiced every single day. So keep that in mind today as we talk about sunshine and how it can be a medicine that can help us combat disease, that can help us live more healthy years. So let's dive into today's topic. I like to start each podcast when we look at the Daily Mail. I look on the front page and I see what's the hot health and wellness topic. And what I saw that came kind of screaming out at the page for today was that it's all over TikTok on the cover of the Daily Mail that content creators are sharing videos where they announce that they have sworn off sunscreen because they believe it contains cancer-causing chemicals that include like the toxic compound benzene. So they're talking about ditching SPF or ditching the sunscreen. The article in the Daily Mail was focused on multiple warnings about sunscreen usage from many of these influencers. So this past year, TikTok users, they've talked about drinking oil to whiten their teeth, rubbing banana peel on their face to decrease wrinkles, and even guzzle Borax for pain relief. But the latest trend has been alarming dermatologists because they're pushing on these platforms that their followers should ditch sun protection. So I thought it was the perfect way to kind of platform us as we talk about lifestyle behaviors that can combat disease. And as I saw sunshine and I saw us trying to block sunshine and all the controversy in the Daily Mail, I thought this is the perfect topic for this podcast. So some have gone as far as to claim that sunlight does not cause skin cancer. And the dermatologists have firmly warned us, and there's a lot of research to show that overexposure to sunshine on the skin does cause skin cancer, and it's affecting around 5 million Americans every year. So this is a serious warning. We're not downplaying the warning, but we want to look at, is there something to what these influencers are saying? What can we learn? Let's everybody come to the table, the influencers, the professional organizations, the researchers, the clinicians, and let's see if we have something to learn from each other. So some of the influencers, one of these lifestyle influencers with 50,000 followers on her platform says, I don't wear sunscreen and I never will. And there's no proof that sun causes cancer. And we've been brainwashed into thinking so. The sun is not the enemy, she adds. Your diet and sunscreen are the cause of cancer. Does she have a good point? She may. Let's look at what other people are saying. No expert is suggesting that we nix sunscreen. Some early research suggests that there are ingredients in this sun protection that can cause concern. And so what really catapulted a lot of this is in 2021, we saw Johnson & Johnson recalling some of their sunscreens, two of them, some of the spray sunscreens that an outside testing organization, Valisar is the lab, this independent lab found benzene in many of the samples. So they recalled this sunscreen. And this really triggered like a TikToker, a life coach named Prince. He shared a video on TikTok recommending that all sunscreen, due to its products containing benzene, that we get rid of them. And he suggested using coconut oil shortly after this recall, saying that this gives us about a 45-minute protection against sun exposure. So again, he's saying your skin absorbs everything you put on it. And so you wouldn't eat it. So why put it in your skin? Do they have a good point? Let's go on and see if they do and what all the science says. We're going to bring all this together today. This independent lab, Valisur, found a third of the sunscreens had this benzene, concentrations of benzene in it. And these are considered impurities in the supply chain. It's a contaminant and it's not supposed to be in the sunscreen. And yet a third of the sunscreens had it. So when we looked at what the dermatologists were saying, they're saying this is a problem in the production of it. It's not part of sunscreen, but it's giving sunscreen a bad rap. So I just thought it was a very interesting topic for us today as we're looking at sunshine, the benefits. We're trying to block too much exposure. We're using sunscreens for that. But are there some risks with our sunscreen? But what we definitely know, and it's very much agreed on across the board, experts in the National Toxicology Program conducted extensive studies on benzene. And they noted rats exposed to UV filter, this oxybenzoin, developed tumors in the thyroid and in the uterus. And other studies have found that benzene, high levels of benzene in the blood levels for long term can cause blood cancer, these long exposures. So, and it's present in many of our favorite sunscreens. So long-term exposure to high levels of benzene, especially in the air, have been found to cause leukemia. And this is a cancer of blood-forming organs. So benzene is also a cause of acute leukemia. It's also been shown as a cause of non-Hodgkin lymphoma. So this is long-term exposure to benzene. Now, benzene is in other products like gasoline fumes. And most of the danger that I saw as I was looking at it today, it was focused on breathing in the fumes. It can be in household detergents. It can be in acne products that are used for acne on the face. And now we're seeing it in some of these sunscreens. So it is a great concern, but it's a concern to the influencers. They've highlighted it. I appreciate when they highlight something like this, but also we're seeing that the dermatologists are in agreement. So there's not a disagreement that benzene is a problem. The problem is that it's made sunscreens also have a bad rap, with a third of the sunscreens testing for benzene. So the FDA is all over this, but I just wanted to put my thoughts to it that, you know, dermatologists agree a contaminant, it's a contaminant in sunscreen. It's not supposed to be there, and that's a bad source of sunscreen. But I was thinking about the way that the social media influencers have so much power and how many people they can reach globally with this platform and YouTube, our whole online space, all the social media. And I was thinking, wow, they've sounded the warning of a carcinogenic compound like benzene that has been found in many different products that we use, household detergents and things like that. But when we see it in a sunscreen where we're trying to protect our skin from cancer, and then we're finding a compound that actually causes cancer in our sun blocking sunscreen, and that's a great concern. But I wish, and I often see, like, would we still see that same alarm of the carcinogenic compounds that we find in food? And I've done previous podcasts on what foods are safe, what foods cause cancer. And I think you can look at some of my previous podcasts on that just in the last few weeks. But ultra processed meats and red meat. It's too bad these influencers aren't picking up on this agenda with this trending movement and taking this warning globally, because anytime we're consuming carcinogenic compounds, foods like this benzene on our skin, what goes on our skin comes into our body, but what we eat goes into our body as well. So I'm just saying, let's really pay attention to avoiding known carcinogenic foods and products like benzene. So back to sunscreen, it's the main tool in our toolbox. But the question is, should we be worried about sun protection? And these influencers are saying, let's throw it out. Let's don't use any sunscreen, or they're looking at other products that might also work. But the studies are very clear that just 5 sunburns in your lifetime doubles your risk of melanoma. This is the deadliest type of skin cancer. It's affected my family, and so I take it very serious. But as we look at sunshine deficiency, that's affected family as well. So we really have a fine line here as we look at our podcast today as what's the risk benefit ratio, and how can we find a good recommendation to keep us safe and maximize the benefits of sunshine as medicine or sunshine as a vitamin. So the bottom line is that we're moving in the right direction. We're creating awareness, but ultimately we're talking about let's don't have an excess exposure to sunshine and the risks that come with that, with having skin cancer, these deadly skin cancers. Now let's talk about sunlight. Is it harmful? It seems like it must be, since we're scrambling to block sunshine. We are also looking at the sunscreens. We've just been talking about the risks and the warnings that we see with skin cancer and sunlight that are being highlighted by dermatologists. But when we talk about sunshine deficiency harming our overall health and well-being, that's what we really want to dive in today are these warnings and all of these concerns overshadowing the health benefits of the sunshine. So I looked at a TED Talk and I saw a dermatologist that really got my attention. His name is Dr. Weller, and he's an enthusiast of the health effects of sunlight. And he's been conducting research on the use of UV light as a treatment for people with high blood pressure. And he published a very well-known study, and he's showing UV light releases nitric oxide in the skin. It dilates the arteries, and it's lowering blood pressure. And so he's hoping to spark a broad reevaluation of sunshine, especially among dermatologists. So I think it's great because he's one of them. They will listen to him. And I've been for the last 2 decades really talking about the lack of sunshine deficiency, and getting just the right amount, not too much and not too little. And I think finding that balance. So I really am excited about some of the current research to show the benefit, and let's find what that line is. So Dr. Weller will be a great source and reference for our podcast today. And his argument is what's abnormal is 2 weeks in Cancun or the sunbed, and it blasts people with lots of UV quickly, and it's a known risk for melanoma. So he's focused on let's stop fixating on the harm of the UV rays, what they can do, and stand back and acknowledge the fact that there's a growing body of evidence that's showing the benefits of sunshine on overall health. So let's look at the 7 ways that sunlight can benefit your health. First of all, as we look at sunlight, number 1 is vitamin D. And I think everybody agrees on that. I looked at all the national organizations right across the line: American Heart Association, Cancer Society, dermatology. Vitamin D is clearly accepted that we need to have the right amount of vitamin D. And when we expose our skin to sunlight, it enables our body to make vitamin D from the cholesterol in your skin cells. So this is why we call vitamin D the sunshine vitamin. And it's technically a hormone. Vitamin D benefits your health in so many ways. So our recommendations for vitamin D, when we look at blood work, do we have enough vitamin D? Are usually enough. What we've seen is to prevent rickets, to have healthy bones. That's a lot smaller amount that we've begun to see more research in the last 20 years. And in my doctoral work, I did a lot of work on vitamin D and looking at vitamin D deficiency, because in our patient population, we were finding that in Pennsylvania, in northern climates, we were finding so much vitamin D deficiency. And so we would, even with supplementation, some people were taking supplements still low in vitamin D, and finding that we could expose them to sunshine and see the vitamin D come up very responsive because it was exposed to the sunlight. directly to the skin without a sunscreen shield, without a hat. It had to have exposure to the sun. And so, what we found in a lot of the studies is that with 40% of the body having a light pink color, the body in just a short time, 30 minutes to an hour, 45 minutes, however long it takes, depending upon your skin color. For some, it might be 20 minutes, can give you 10 to 40,000 units of vitamin D. Very powerful. And so, vitamin D also stores in the body. So that's a great way to get high levels of vitamin D. So if we have sunshine deficiency, we will likely have vitamin D deficiency. We moved to California and we started the Take 10 program, and we found it to be very interesting. I expected Californians to have lots of vitamin D, sunshine state. You expect to see these numbers. And we're just seeing vitamin D deficiency across the board. And that was very confusing to me. And I think that's why on the Daily Mail, when I saw the sunscreen and just thinking about how much the warnings about skin cancer, sun exposure, overexposure causing that have just led us to move over to what I call sun deficiency. And so a daily dose of sunshine appears to have some benefit. And we're looking at these right now, like vitamin D. If we get enough vitamin D, it can help regulate blood pressure. So we can see improvements in blood pressure, immune system, maintaining healthy blood vessels, keeping your brain working well, and regulating blood sugar. So there's many, many benefits that we see to sunlight. But number two, we look at strengthening bones. So as mentioned above, vitamin D supports bone health. The sunshine vitamin helps your body absorb calcium, and which is essential for strong bones and helps to prevent conditions like osteoporosis, osteopenia. So having good bone health can also help you avoid bone fractures and breaks. So vitamin D is connected to calcium absorption. I think that's really important for us to note. And again, sunshine is a way that we can naturally create our free production of vitamin D. So I think that's super important. We also can get vitamin D from food sources that are fortified. But most vitamin D, I like to depend on not supplementation, even though I recommend supplementation of vitamin D. I know dairy milk is fortified. Some of the plant-based milks also fortify with vitamin D to make sure people get enough vitamin D, since we're very concerned about the deficiency of vitamin D. But ultimately, sunshine would solve that. Number three is sunlight kills bacteria. So most of us spend a lot of time indoors, and the indoor environments can contain dust that contains types of bacteria. And some of these can trigger asthma and allergy symptoms. So one study found that sunlight can kill the bacteria that lives in the dust indoors. And one study, 12% of the bacteria that survived in a darkroom environment, that only 6% of the dust bacteria survived after being exposed to sunlight. So what does it mean for you? Open up the shades and windows and get more sunlight in your home, because the UV rays really can kill the allergens and bacteria in the dust in your home and improve your air quality significantly. I also think back to some of the studies that we would talk about that would be in the hospital bed or in the nursing home. The bed that was closest to the window had a better recovery. That patient had better health outcomes than the one further from the window. And we kind of see some of these studies that kind of highlighted was it bacteria? Is it the vitamin D boosting immune system? But we definitely saw a connection between sunlight and healing and improving overall well-being. So that could be connected to the immune boosting effect. So that's number three. Number four, sunlight may reduce high blood pressure. This is a biggie. And this is some of the work that Dr. Weller, he's this dermatologist who's pushing back on sunlight and the risks of it, and talking about, could sun be good for our heart? And he's focused on lowering blood pressure. Dr. Weller did in 2020 a large North American cohort of over 342,000 people that had chronic hemodialysis. They used sunlight, a daily dose of sunlight, and it was found and associated with a lower systolic blood pressure. Systolic's that high number on your blood pressure. So even after adjusting for environmental temperatures, they showed that human exposure to sunlight, these ultraviolet light, contributed to blood pressure regulation. And the study based the idea that UV light increases the availability of nitric oxide in the body. So nitric oxide is a molecule that can cause your blood vessels to widen, and as a result, lower your blood pressure. Super exciting. I did research and looked a lot working with a cardiologist in my residency program and my doctor of clinical nutrition. And it was all about relaxing the arterial wall and blood pressure. And we've talked about blood pressure is the silent killer. And I've had some comments on my second podcast that I did was about the video was on the silent killer of blood pressure. And somebody said that's kind of a misleading title. And yet it's absolutely true because there's no symptoms with high blood pressure. Low blood pressure is very symptomatic, but high blood pressure, people don't know your blood pressure begins creeping up. The vessels get a little bit firmer, less elastic. They're not relaxed. And we begin to see that blood pressure rises as the vessels get what we call hardening of the arteries can cause high blood pressure. And so on our skin, we have nitrates. And when it's exposed to sunshine, it makes nitric oxide. This nitric oxide gets into the blood vessels, and it relaxes our arterial wall. It's powerful. And that lowers blood pressure. So this is that daily sunshine having a medicine-like effect. Because if we took a medication, it would lower our blood pressure until the next dose is due. It's short term. That's why we take that medicine all the time to lower blood pressure. This is the same thing as we're building a case for daily sunshine dose. And this is for reducing blood pressure and getting this nitric oxide boost. So what are some of the clinical implications from this large study? This is an observational study, and the findings are consistent, showing that reduced blood pressure lowers the rate of cardiovascular disease in populations with higher sun exposure. So sunlight appears to lower blood pressure, and it's raising the possibility that insufficient exposure to ultraviolet radiation and or active avoidance of sunlight may be the new risk factor for hypertension in the general population. Super exciting. I'm like, this is powerful because I've been talking about the benefits of the right amount of sunlight for a long time. And to see some of these studies, these are current studies that are backing this up with great evidence. So we're talking about science-backed, current. We're really seeing some great benefits to lowering blood pressure. And again, this can prevent us from even getting high blood pressure in the first place if you don't have it, and just keep you in overall good health. Again, more healthy years. We'll talk about what's the best dose. But the concerns with sunlight, the dermatologic concerns about skin cancer inducing the effect of UV radiation need to be balanced against the observed blood pressure lowering effects of sunlight. So these are the concerns because we've got a heavy burden of disease caused by hypertension, but we also have to weigh the odds of skin cancer. So again, Dr. Weller and his TED Talk, he did this TED Talk back in 2012. He did this research and published it in 2020. But as a dermatologist, I love what he said. He says, in my day job, I'm saying to people, you've got skin cancer. It's caused by sunlight. Don't go in the sun. But yet he's saying a far more important message is that there are benefits as well as risks to sunlight. So yes, sunlight is a major alterable risk factor for skin cancer, but deaths from heart disease are 100 times higher than deaths from skin cancer. That's powerful coming from a dermatologist. And he's saying, and I think we need to be more aware and we need to find the risk-benefit ratio of how much sunlight is safe and how we can finesse this best for our general health. And we will show what is that fine risk-benefit ratio. Hypertension, again, it's a leading cause of premature death, and disease and death, and it affects over 1 billion people worldwide. Its pathophysiology is very complex. It has it's multiple genetic, behavioral, lifestyle-related, environmental risk factors, social stressors with the endocrine, metabolic, autonomic nervous system, and cardiovascular system. And it doesn't have overt symptoms. So again, it's silent. It can be very silent. Hypertension can remain unrecognized and escape detection for a long period of time with this raised blood pressure that's inflicting end organ damage. So this is a risk factor. It's something that we really want to pay attention to. Stroke, brain, kidney. We want to have a healthy blood pressure. So this is a very convincing study. It's a large observational study. And there's a lot of clinical trials as well that are supporting that reducing cardiovascular risk and mortality and strokes and heart attacks is important from lowering blood pressure. And again, I want to highlight 2017 American College of Cardiology, American Heart Association guidelines for the prevention and treatment, evaluation, and management of hypertension. They redefine normal blood pressure to less than 120 millimeters of mercury for the systolic blood pressure and less than 80 millimeters of mercury for the diastolic. And again, irrespective of age, we used to be a little bit more generous. Well, they're getting a little bit older. We're going to start to see blood pressure rise. Now we're not accepting that. We are focusing on managing systolic blood pressure, even in the older population. So it's really important that we look at all the things that we're doing in our lifestyle that can improve blood pressure. So nitric oxide is a blood pressure reducer. When we lower our blood pressure, we drop our risk for cardiovascular disease, stroke, heart attack, so many diseases. So I think kidney disease. So I think it's really important for us to also remember the other things we've talked about that boost nitric oxide. So now we see sunshine does. That's super exciting. Sunshine, this is where it can have a great medicine-like effect. It's boosting nitric oxide. The other things we've talked about in previous podcasts at the wellness table is how nuts can have a nitric oxide benefit. Talked about blueberries, the color, the anthocyanins, some of these antioxidants that can actually have a nitric oxide benefit. I've talked about blueberries. Our brand at the wellness table is all about blueberries. You're going to see blueberries all over the place, just representing a very powerful food. And it has a power to lower our blood pressure in an hour after consumption, improving memory and mind clarity, improving just vascular flow. It's relaxing the arterial wall. So it helps us have better mental clarity. It's lowering blood pressure, very powerful. So nitric oxide, blueberries, nuts. Now we're seeing it with sunshine. So super exciting when we can see things that can boost nitric oxide. Some of the risk factors for hypertension include poor diet, salt, alcohol, smoking, obesity, physical activity. These are all the focus of the different interventions. But now we're going to start to see, and I'm excited to see sunshine added to the list. Sunshine deficiency is potentially moving to this list of risk factors for hypertension. That's super exciting. So I was excited about this study, Dr. Weller's work. It really highlighted a lot of the things for today's podcast. Also to see that, American Heart Association, seeing the agreement that sunshine is linked to low blood pressure. And again, the name of the study was, does incident solar ultraviolet radiation lower blood pressure? And this is some of the great work from Dr. Weller. And again, they highlight that melanomas are bad news. We're not downplaying the problem. Dermatologists are very worried about it, but it's not caused by simple sunlight. It's caused by sunburn and intermittent sunlight, like these vacations in Cancun for 2 weeks where we overdo it or overdoing it in a sunbed. Dr. Weller is a dermatologist, and he's saying, let's stop fixating on the harm of the UV rays and what they can do and stand back and acknowledge the fact that there's a growing body of evidence that there are many health benefits from a daily dose of sunshine. So let's look at what is that dose. And we looked at a study in 2014 that was published in the Journal of Investigative Dermatology. And it said 20 minutes of ultraviolet A, the UVA sunlight, can cause blood pressure to lower by a small but significant amount. So this study found that participants' blood pressure dropped by 5 points after 2 sessions of 20 minutes each. Its effects lasted over an hour. So that was just 20 minutes of ultraviolet light. So what we're seeing here is it's increasing the levels of nitric oxide, and this is a chemical that's linked to blood flow. So now let's go to number 5. Sunlight can help improve sleep quality. Sun exposure plays a big role in maintaining your body's internal clock, or the circadian rhythm. And so as we look at how the sun's light-dark cycle helps you fall asleep at night when there's darkness and wake up in the morning when it's light. So you can try using the sun light dark cycle to improve your sleep hygiene. So a key point here is experts recommend being in the bright sunlight in the morning will increase your chance of falling asleep earlier that evening. So again, early sunshine in the morning increases your melatonin levels, and melatonin plays a key role helping you sleep when it gets dark. So we're always looking at, are we getting enough darkness? Like, is there lights on in the night? Is it a clock or a television that's on? And we really see a connection in sunlight and sleep quality and really having a dark room that we sleep in. And you'll see as we talk about some of the other benefits of sunlight, the importance of that. But it's exciting to see that morning sunlight affects the circadian rhythm, and it helps us sleep better in the evening. And we know when we sleep better, we also improve our overall health. So sunlight improves sleep. So that's number 5. Number 6 is sunlight boosts mood. So, getting adequate amount of sunlight can help combat mood disorders. Mostly this, you've heard of seasonal affective disorder, SAD. And SAD is a type of depression that usually occurs in the fall and the winter when there's less sunlight, or some of the northern states like Washington State, um, Alaska, some of those northern areas that have less hours of daylight in the winter, especially. So, although the exact cause of this seasonal affective disorder is kind of unknown, they're projecting that it's caused by a lack of sunlight, and it may affect the brain's hypothalamus. So, it may be harder for your circadian rhythm to time certain functions like waking up. So, as a result, you're more likely to experience these seasonal affective disorder and feel more depressed, despair, or fatigue. So, sunlight boosts your level of serotonin, and this improves your mood. So, we have medications that do this. And now again, we're seeing a medicine like effect. We saw it with blood pressure. We see it raising vitamin D. We see all the benefits, but here's a medicine like effect boosting serotonin. And this can contribute to improving depression. So it makes a sense that getting more sunlight can boost your level of serotonin and improve your mood. So that's very powerful. So if we're talking about now another health benefit of a daily dose of sunshine. And again, this gets overshadowed by our fear of skin cancer. So that's what we're weighing today is how we can boost mood. We look at how many people in the population are on an antidepressant right now. And could this be related to how much we've heeded the warning of sunshine and we've stayed out of the sun, or we've used sunscreens that block these helpful rays, or we've used clothing and sunglasses and hats and everything. We're doing everything we can to protect our skin from this deadly skin cancer. And what other health benefits are we missing? And where's the fine line between them? Number 7 is our last one that we're talking about today in the podcast, and that is sunlight helps you lose weight. Morning sun and morning steps, I like to say, could be the new weight loss option. So we talked about in the last podcast, exercise as medicine. And we're looking at what are these lifestyle behaviors that can have a medicine-like effect on diabetes, improving blood sugar. We talked about that with exercise. We saw some studies with the sunlight also improving blood sugar and helping us with our metabolic health. And again, as we see early morning sun as a weight loss option, what's that about? So light exposure from getting outdoors in the morning, even on an overcast day, was correlated to lower body weight compared to the typical office building. So a lot of doctors are starting to try phototherapy to treat obesity. And the first case response we saw at some of the 1990s, women would lose on an average of 4 pounds over 6 weeks with just having morning bright light exposure. That kind of started the wave. And then we began to see more studies. And we can just look up in WebMD and just search for that today on your computer. And you will see morning sunlight can help with weight loss. And some studies suggest it can shrink fat cells. I love that when I'm starting to see it's moving into mainstream. So sunlight and weight loss is getting very mainstream accepted. A Northwestern medicine study, found that people who spent most of their day in the moderately bright light in the morning had a lower body mass index than those who spent most of their day in the light later in the day. So these researchers suggested that morning sunlight helps synchronize your internal body clock. And this can help us with that sleep cycle we talked about. And a good night's sleep can help regulate hormones that can affect and impact our hunger and help us make healthier food choices. Another study, India, is sunshine the ultimate weight loss secret? Just names of some of these studies. Women's Health Research Institute, morning sun is the new weight loss option. Bariatric surgery in Sydney, the simple things you can do in the morning to help you lose weight. These are all talking about sunlight, a daily dose of morning sunlight for weight loss. So I love this. For weight loss, morning light also seems to help people keep the fat off. You need about 20 to 30 minutes is what most of these studies are saying and agreeing on between 8 a.m. and noon to make a difference, especially for weight loss. And the earlier you get the sunlight, the better it seems to work. Scientists think that the sun rays may shrink the subcutaneous fat cells. So we'll look at a study that was published in Obesity Journal in 2020. And it was titled, I loved it, Walking in the Light, and how history of physical activity, sunlight, and vitamin D account for body fat. So this was a neat study. It was a 10-year longitudinal study, and it concluded that both physical activity and sunlight exposure were independently linked to vitamin D and reduced obesity. And when they tested these conjointly, physical activity was associated with elevated vitamin D levels beyond the effects of sunlight. So more sunlight was exposure was related to less subcutaneous fat mass. So that's the fat under the skin. So we're looking at vitamin D connected with sunlight, really improving and decreasing the amount of subcutaneous fat, which is the fat that's stored right under the skin. So, a study in Northwestern Medicine reported the timing, the intensity, and the duration of light exposure during the day is linked to your weight. So, this is the first time this was shown that people who had the most daily exposure to even moderately bright light in the morning had a significantly lower body mass index than those who had most of their light exposure later in the day. And that was about a 20% difference, a drop of 20% in a person's BMI. So it was influenced by the morning light exposure on body weight. And it was independent of physical activity, calorie intake. That one was shocking. Sleep timing, age, or season. So this is really breaking it down to morning sunlight. This is great evidence and great science to show us that a daily dose of sunshine in the morning is really coming to light, I should say, of having some really great health benefits. So some of the statements here: light is the most potent agent to synchronize your internal body clock that regulates circadian rhythm, which in turn regulates energy balance. So this is very interesting, and we should get that bright light between 8 and noon. And about 20 to 30 minutes of morning light was enough to affect and lower the BMI. So this was from these researchers, Dr. Phyllis Z. She's an MD and professor of neurology and director of the Northwestern Medicine Sleep and Circadian Rhythm Institute at Northwestern University. So this is interesting. She's a neurologist, and she's saying that if a person doesn't get sufficient sleep at the appropriate time of day, it can desynchronize your internal clock and alter metabolism and lead to weight gain. So light is the most potent agent to synchronize your internal body clock. So this is super powerful, and it's the message that getting that light between 8 a.m. and noon and 20 to 30 minutes was enough to affect the lowering the BMI. So light might be the new frontier in weight loss. Light's a modifiable risk factor, and its potential to use in weight management programs would be amazing. And we've been using it in Take 10. If you look at our wellness score, we look at the 10 foods and lifestyle behaviors that have the power to heal the body, to combat disease, and help you live more healthy years. And we recommend 30 minutes of sunshine, and you get 1 point a day for that. And again, the time of day. So this is exciting to see this new research, and it's just continuing to affirm the power of sunshine, daily dose of sunshine, and that sunshine deficiency is a great concern and what we can do about it. I had to see what Dr. Greger from Nutrition Facts said. And again, he aligned right here with all this research about circadian syncing, and the morning bright light therapy is a viable weight loss strategy. So insufficient morning light might be the circadian equivalent, he says, of skipping breakfast. I thought that was a great comparison based on a negative health outcome. And indoor light is too bright at night, and it may be too dim during the day to robustly boost our daily rhythm. So light exposure from getting outdoors in the morning, even on an overcast day, is correlated to lower body weight compared to a typical office. So these were really great things, and this phytotherapy was something that Dr. Greger talks about. And another study, I liked this one too, it showed the exposure to bright light even in the day prior to exercise can boost performance. So the hand grip endurance test, where you see how many times you can squeeze the hand grip, the exposure to light from bright light the day before increased the number of contractions until exhaustion from 770 contractions squeezing it to 860 the very next day. So that's powerful too, as we're looking at, wow, that's sunlight affecting performance and some of our exercise. So that might be some great future studies as well. So very excited to see some of these studies. There was a study in Norway that Dr. Greger highlights that showed a 12-pound weight loss advantage in 8 weeks of 30 minutes of daylight or sunshine compared to indoor lighting. So again, they saw a 45-minute of morning sunlight giving a 1-pound difference in body fat reduction. So these are the things. Bright light alone can stimulate serotonin, production in the human brain and can cause the release of adrenaline type hormones. So both of these can benefit body fat outside of the circadian rhythm. So we're now looking at sunshine and its effect on serotonin and adrenaline type hormones. So Dr. Greger concludes that regardless of the mechanism, bright morning light, no matter how it's helping, bright morning light, daylight exposure could present a novel weight loss strategy. It's free. You don't have to buy a supplement. You just have to be careful that you're not getting too much. And then we look again, there's more studies looking at the metabolic improvements and how sunlight can be helpful for weight loss and obesity. So there's some of the studies that we're seeing across the board, even in the animal studies, the human studies. So I'm excited to continue to see these studies continue to grow, but consistently throughout all the studies I looked at, it was coming in with finding that balance of sunlight between 8 and noon. About 20 to 30 minutes of morning light was enough to affect the BMI. Now let's talk a little bit about the best time to get sunlight. And early morning was the best time for the circadian rhythm. That looking directly into the light in that sunrise. Andrew Huberman talks about that, and he's into neurobiology and neuroscience. So I love seeing his take on that early morning sunrise. But we're seeing even any morning sunshine up till noon and showing the health benefits. And then some of the other studies looking at 10 minutes of sun exposure to 40% of your body at noon, high noon, with the highest amount of UVA rays is going to give you more of the vitamin D and nitric oxide and serotonin levels. So this again would be, how do we get enough of this type of sun exposure, shorter bursts of it, not getting too much, and get the maximum benefit. So this early morning, we're getting the circadian rhythm benefits. But as we look at a little bit closer to noon, we're seeing maybe 10 minutes with actual sun exposing part of our body to the sun closer to noon, giving us vitamin D, boosting serotonin, and boosting nitric oxide and some of the other health benefits. So when you can fit sunlight into your schedule, it's a good time. Researchers are suggesting that you absorb the most sunlight around noon. So I've pushed early morning prior to noon. I would be careful of a high noon in a California or closer to the equator, making sure you do not get a sunburn, because I think that's the most important thing. And that's what dermatologists are concerned about. But ultimately, based on your skin, based on your color of skin, the lighter your color, the lower your exposure to sun without getting a sunburn. The more melanin that's in your skin, the darker your skin color, that's a protection. That's a natural sunscreen. And so you might need a little bit more sun exposure to be able to get these numbers up. So in the UK, they recommend 10 to 15 minutes of daily sun exposure, daily sunshine for those with lighter skin, and 25 to 40 minutes with those with darker skin with more melanin. So every day there's a daily dose of sunshine, and it's recommended. We're seeing between 8 and noon. It's about 20 to 30 minutes of morning, again, 20 to 30 minutes of morning light. And it affects the BMI, and we're getting all these other health benefits. But it's important for us to think about our skin tone, the time of day, where we live, and make sure that we are preventing getting sunburn. And then as soon as we've met our daily quota, then we cover ourselves. We put the clothes on. If you want to use a hat, sunglasses, and if you choose to use a sunscreen, try to choose a safe one that doesn't have carcinogenic compounds in it. And then let's look at how we can protect our skin if you're going to be beyond that daily sun exposure recommendation. So keep in mind that regardless of the skin tone, when you spend more time in the sun, it can increase your risk for sunburn and skin cancer. So it's very important that you put on sunscreen, or that you put on clothing, or that you put on protect the skin as soon as you've met your daily sunshine quota. I think that's very important for us to highlight here and make sure that we're finding that fine line. So again, the best time of day, morning sunshine, and also before noon. Our conclusion here is that sunlight has various benefits that can improve your health. We've talked about 7 of them here. And again, vitamin D, it's very important. Some people only need 10 minutes of sunlight to see the health benefits, and people with darker skin may need more. So we kind of coming in here recommending between 8 and 12, about 30 minutes of sunlight. Another thing that we learned from Dr. Weller, the dermatologist, is to focus on the benefits of sun for our health, is that we need to stop fixating on the harm and what it can do, and stand back and acknowledge the health benefits of a daily dose of sunshine every day. Don't be afraid of it, but also respect the sun, and be very aware that Even a sunscreen can give us a false security of being out in the sun all day, that 2 weeks on our sun vacation at the beach, and we can overdo it, or those sunbeds. Be very concerned and protect your skin against skin cancer. I like to look at this as, how do we search for that fine line between the risk and the benefit for sunlight? So as we're searching for the fine line and the risk benefit ratio for sunlight, I see this J curve for sunlight in the horizon. That's a great way to explain it, I think. And Dr. Peter Attia used it to describe alcohol and its risks. So on one hand, we see no sunlight increases our risk for heart disease, depression, cancer, hypertension, all these diseases related to overweight and obesity, high blood pressure. And there's a rise in the J curve initially. And then we see this J curve begin to spike, and it drops as we begin to add our daily dose of sunshine at the right intensity, at the right amount, at the right time of day. And we see this effect of lowering our risk for cardiovascular disease by boosting nitric oxide with nitrogen in the skin that's released from the sun, and it relaxes the arterial wall, and it lowers blood pressure, and it's lowering our risk of cardiovascular disease. So again, this nitric oxide boost from sunshine, lowering our risk on the J curve. Then the sun helps us make vitamin D and all the benefits of vitamin D, bone health, helping even fight cancer, cardiovascular protective. And then we look at sun skin exposure, increasing serotonin levels, boosting our mood, improving depression, helps us fight being overweight, obesity. It helps us reduce appetite. It increases our metabolism. It's dropping our BMI to a healthy BMI. It's helping with body recomposition, dropping body fat. We're improving our endurance, some of the grip strength studies. Again, the vitamin D, improving the bone health, improving immunity, killing bacteria. It just keeps going on. So this risk just drops from the right amount of sunshine every day. And then we just see this surge in the J curve going straight up as we begin to see that quickly spiking our risk for skin cancer from excessive sun exposure, that early age sunburn, those intermittent 2 weeks at the beach vacations, those sunbeds, being out in the sun at extended periods of time. I see this with the professional golfers, and you can just see they're out in the sun all the time, and just covering with hats, and what are all the protective things that we can do. And this just shows this J curve. It's the balance. The J curve, I see it in the future for how we describe sunlight. No sunlight, increasing risk. As we meet our daily sunshine goals, our daily dose of sunshine, that J curve comes down, the risk goes down, and it just rapidly shoots up as we look at overexposure to sunshine. So we ultimately see it as a J curve, and we're finding that balance. Sunburns are a problem for the skin. It's well known. Everyone agrees. Some sunskins, some of the sunscreens are not safe. They're carcinogenic, and we want to find safe ones if we're using that as well. So the question, to summarize, is it possible that the influencers, the dermatologists, the national organizations, is it possible that everybody has something to bring to the table, and that they all have pieces of something that's right? Can we learn from everyone who's invested in this topic and the benefits of sunlight and the risks of sunlight? The influencers, they're warning us against the carcinogenic sunscreens that can raise our blood levels of benzene. It's a carcinogenic compound. There are other compounds that can raise our risk for cancer within a sunscreen. There's also the false security of a sunscreen, and potentially maybe not as safe as we may think, that we can't block all of the rays from sunscreen, or we may miss areas of the body where it may be washed off. We also see the warning of the dermatologists that over sun exposure to the skin, raising our risk of skin cancer like melanoma. And then we hear this Dr. Weller. He's a dermatologist advocating for a proper daily dose of sunlight to lower blood pressure by boosting nitric oxide. And then we hear Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist and ophthalmology expert, and he's talking about research on early morning sunshine and circadian rhythm and boosting evening melatonin to give us this good sleep, sleeping well and improving our overall health. Dr. Greger agreeing with this. And we look at the American Cancer Society, the American Heart Association, seeing the benefit of sunlight on vitamin D and also nitric oxide boosting and reducing blood pressure. So everybody's kind of coming together and bringing in points. And then we see the research on weight loss. So we know overweight and obesity is a major problem in our country. And so we're seeing weight loss benefits from sunlight as well. So morning sunlight, again, helping you keep your fat off, having a lower body mass index of 20% from early morning sun exposure on a daily basis. So 20 to 30 minutes of daily dose of sunshine from 8 to noon can make a real difference in your health. And scientists are even saying that these sun rays may shrink fat cells in that subcutaneous below your skin surface. Sunlight may be the new frontier or the next frontier for weight loss. And that's really exciting as we begin to see these benefits. So, light is the most potent agent to synchronize your internal body clock that regulates circadian rhythm. It also helps regulate energy balance. Now we're seeing that it can blunt appetite. So many benefits, improve endurance. It's a real powerful case that there is a health benefit from the right amount of sunshine, a daily dose of sunshine every single day. There's so much to learn about sunlight, the risk, the benefits, and we want to highlight those today. And the focus of the Wellness Table podcast is to see what everybody's saying. Let's bring it together and let's learn together. And it's really important for us to not take these warnings of skin cancer and overshadow the benefits from a small daily dose of sunshine every single day with these huge amount of health benefits that we could be missing by being afraid of being exposed to the sun. So I hope today gave you the confidence of where we can be and what dose, looking at your skin tone, looking at where you live, the times of year, and really making sure that every day you get a daily dose of sunshine. And I think what's great is that you can do so many things at one time. I want you to come back to the free wellness score that I have at drcherylwellness.com. It's available to any of you to check it out. But I want to say that if you look at that wellness score, that is my wellness prescription that I've created with 10 foods and 10 lifestyle behaviors at the right dose. And then we adjust it based on your personal needs, preferences like your skin tone, where you live, and your health conditions. So as we look at this, we can go in the morning between 8 and 12 and we can walk outside in the sunshine. We can walk with a friend. And as we look at getting a score point on the wellness 20-point score for 30 minutes of sunshine every single day and getting it at the right time, and then adding to that your steps. So you're adding your exercise. So again, that's medicine. You can have many, many health benefits happening all at the same time in a 30-minute period in the beginning of our day. And I think that we would find a lot of power from that. So I'd love to challenge you listeners that test this on yourself. Let's take a sunlight challenge for the next 10 days. In the morning between 8 and 12, try it yourself for 10 days and see how you feel. Walk for 30 minutes in the morning, 30 to 45 minutes in the morning between 8 and noon to get your daily sunshine benefit. Don't be sunshine deficient this week. You're not wearing any sunglasses, sunscreen. Your skin will be exposed. Some of your skin is exposed, your arms, maybe you're in short, depending upon what you're wearing, and see how you feel. And you're walking at the same time. So you're going to get a lot of benefit. And then be aware of those high, bright sunlight days between noon and 2 where you might get a sunburn, and cover up once you meet your daily dose of sunshine. You can keep walking if you want to, and then that's when you'd cover and protect the body. And try that for 10 days and see how you feel. And let me know. Let me know. Make your comments and say, this is how I felt after 10 days on this sunlight challenge, because I think it's really important for us to test everything for ourselves. So if you appreciated today's podcast about sunshine, give it a thumbs up. That helps us grow the show. And if you never want to miss a weekly podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel at Dr. Cheryl Wellness, or on your favorite podcast platform if you prefer to listen to the podcast. It's the Wellness Table podcast. It's on all the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, all of them. We also have our weekly email list. So if you want to join the email list, drcherylwellness.com, and you can sign up for our email list. And I'll leave the link in the podcast show notes to join our email list, to be a part of our Wellness Table community. And also, if you like this podcast, I think you might really like the one, podcast 27, on exercise as medicine and how can we use exercise to combat disease and live more healthy years. We're going to focus on the lifestyle habits and the foods that can help us or be as a medicine to combat disease. I love that topic, live more healthy years. And anything you want to talk about, leave them in the comments. I'm happy to cover all the different topics. It's really exciting as we can see how we can use what we eat and how we live to be our most powerful medicine. I'm excited that you're here. Welcome to Wellness, and I'll see you next week.